You know that feeling when you wake up already tired, even after a full night's sleep? Not physically exhausted, just heavy, like your mind has been running in the background for years and it never fully shuts off. You answer emails before you're fully awake. You scroll through opportunities you don't even want. You feel behind, even when you're doing everything right. And when you try to explain it, people say you're overthinking, or ungrateful, or just stressed like everyone else. But this feels different. There's a particular kind of person who learned early on that stability isn't guaranteed, who grew up hearing that the world is competitive, expensive, uncertain, who was told to get degrees, build side hustles, stay adaptable, never fall behind. From the outside, they look functional, responsible, driven. Inside, something feels quietly worn down. This is what's happening inside the mind of a burnt-out millennial, and there's more going on here than most people realize. Burnout isn't just about long work hours. It's not laziness. It's not weakness. Psychologists describe burnout as a state of emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and reduced sense of accomplishment. But those clinical words don't capture the lived experience. What it often feels like is this. You care deeply. You try hard, and somehow it never feels like enough. Neuroscience helps explain why. When someone lives in prolonged uncertainty, financial pressure, career instability, constant comparison, the brain's stress response system stays slightly activated, not in full panic mode, just enough to keep cortisol gently elevated. Over time, that subtle activation drains energy reserves. The nervous system wasn't designed to operate in low-grade survival mode for decades, yet many millennials entered adulthood during economic recessions, rising living costs, global crises, and non-stop digital comparison. The brain interprets unpredictability as threat, and when threat feels ongoing, it adapts. It becomes hyper-alert, future-focused, always scanning. That scanning feels like ambition on the surface. Underneath, it's vigilance. Behavioral science shows that when effort and reward feel misaligned for long periods, motivation shifts. Instead of striving because something feels meaningful, the brain starts striving to avoid falling behind. That shift is subtle, but powerful. Avoidance motivation consumes more energy than purpose-driven motivation. So even achievements feel muted. You hit a milestone, and instead of relief, you feel temporary calm before the next climb. This pattern usually didn't start in adulthood. Many burnt-out millennials were praised for being mature for their age, responsible, self-sufficient, high-achieving. Some grew up in households where stability depended on performance, emotional or practical. Others internalized early that mistakes were costly. The nervous system learned, stay prepared, stay ahead, don't relax too much. That adaptation worked. It helped you succeed. It made you competent. But survival strategies don't automatically switch off when circumstances change. The brain keeps running the old script. It says, keep going, rest later, even when later never quite arrives. There's no judgment here. This pattern isn't better or worse than anyone else's. Some people are wired towards spontaneity, others towards security. Neither is superior. They're just different adaptations to different environments. Burnout isn't a character flaw. It's what happens when a highly responsible nervous system doesn't feel safe enough to power down. And here's the paradox most people don't talk about. The very traits that create burnout are often the same traits that create quiet strength. You're reliable, thoughtful, anticipatory. You see risks before others do. You plan, you build, you consider consequences. But there's a cost. When your identity becomes intertwined with being the dependable one, rest can feel undeserved. Slowing down can trigger guilt. Even joy can feel like something that needs to be optimized. That's not because you don't know how to relax. It's because your brain learned that relaxation equals vulnerability.
Studies on chronic stress show that over time, the brain's reward circuitry becomes less responsive. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with motivation and pleasure, doesn't spike the same way it once did. This isn't depression in the dramatic sense. It's more like emotional dimming. Life becomes a series of tasks instead of experiences. You start fantasizing about escape, not because you hate your life, but because you're tired of carrying it so carefully. And yet, you keep going. That's the part people miss. Burnt-out millennials aren't quitting life, they're enduring it. There's also something generational happening. Many were raised with the promise that hard work guaranteed stability, but the world shifted. Housing markets inflated, career ladders became unstable, social media amplified comparison. The equation changed, but the internal standard didn't. So you compensate by trying harder. The nervous system reads the gap between effort and outcome as a personal failure, even when it's structural. That internalization is exhausting. But none of this means you're broken. In fact, your reactions make psychological sense. A brain exposed to prolonged uncertainty becomes strategic. A child praised for competence becomes an adult who overfunctions. A generation raised on achievement metrics measures themselves relentlessly. Of course you're tired. The deeper insight is this: burnout isn't always about doing too much. Sometimes it's about carrying too much psychological responsibility for outcomes you don't fully control. When everything feels like it depends on you, the body never fully rests. There's a quiet shift that begins to happen when you recognize this. Not a dramatic life overhaul, not quitting everything, just a subtle reframing. Maybe the exhaustion isn't proof that you're failing. Maybe it's evidence that you've been adapting for a very long time, and adaptation is intelligent. The goal isn't to erase ambition or responsibility or drive. It's to allow your nervous system to experience moments where effort isn't the only currency of worth. Some people will continue sprinting without questioning it. Others will detach completely. Neither path is inherently right, but awareness gives you choice, and choice softens pressure. If parts of this felt uncomfortably accurate, that's not coincidence. It means your experience has patterns, and patterns can be understood. There are layers to this: the subtle guilt around rest, the fear of irrelevance, the tension between wanting simplicity and fearing stagnation. Those layers deserve space. You are not weak for feeling worn down. You are not ungrateful for wanting relief. And you are not alone in this internal negotiation between effort and exhaustion. There's more to explore about how this generation learned to equate survival with productivity, and what happens when that equation starts to loosen. If this resonated, stay with me. There's more beneath the surface. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe because more interesting content is on the way.